Hello, Julie Traeger here. Welcome back to Small Bytes. So, I apologize ahead of time for today's subject because it's really one that nobody wants to hear. Nobody really wants to talk about. But if I am committed to your health, and I am committed to your health and wellness, then we really have to talk about the subject of sugar. Yeah. I'm sorry to tell you that sugar it really is one of the worst things that you can ingest on a day-to-day basis, and most Americans are getting way too much of it, more than they even know. So 100 years ago, the average consumption of sugar for the average American was about 50 pounds of sugar a year. And now we consume on average 150 pounds of sugar a year. So our consumption of sugar has tripled in the last 100 years. And the reason for that is processed food. Sugar is lurking in most processed foods. Most people have no idea that the breakfast yogurt that they're eating has as much sugar as a Coke, or if that spaghetti sauce that they buy at the grocery store has as much sugar as a serving of Oreos. And I'm talking about a serving of the spaghetti sauce, not the whole jar. And in the breakfast cereal that you're eating can be as much as 75% sugar. And I'm talking about the healthy ones, the whole grain variety, as well as Lucky Charms. So I'm not picking on Lucky Charms, but I'm just saying your breakfast cereal has far more sugar than most people realize. And it's lurking in all kinds of things that you would never even think of, like deviled eggs and the potato salad that you buy at the deli. It's lurking in barbecue sauce and ketchup and salad dressing. It's everywhere. So because our consumption of sugar has increased dramatically, we're now seeing a health crises of sorts from that rise in sugar. Now, most of you kind of know the process. You know, when you eat sugar, particularly a high concentration of sugar, your blood sugar spikes way up. Then your pancreas kicks in. If it's a healthy pancreas, it secretes insulin, gobbles up the glucose, and then your glucose can crash if you've had a really super high blood glucose level from sugar. It can crash and leave you feeling, fatigued and shaky and irritable. Hungering for more sugar or more caffeine. So we all sort of know that process. And in and of itself, eating sugar occasionally isn't a bad thing. But over time, this chronic vicious cycle of blood sugar spikes and then crashes causes inflammation. And inflammation, we now know, is probably at the root of most disease states. So they're looking at high sugar intake in terms of adrenal fatigue, thyroid disruption, mood swings. It affects your immune system. It tends to depress your immune system. So if you're getting sick a lot, this could be why. There are a whole host of issues that are going on that it can be caused by a daily over intake of sugar. And one of the things that we've finally figured out is it's a big culprit in heart disease. So for years, we've been blaming fat and cholesterol on heart disease, and now we know that a high sugar intake actually contributes to heart disease even more. Now, don't get me wrong, consuming bad fats like those trans fats definitely can contribute to heart disease, but good animal product fats, good quality animal products like from organic pasture-fed beef, does not cause heart disease. But what we do know is that inflammatory cycle caused by daily sugar intake does. And sugar seems to do three things to your heart. It seems to decrease the plasticity, the elasticity of your arterial walls. It also decreases the levels of HDL. That's your good cholesterol. That's the cholesterol that you need and you want. And then it also raises your triglycerides, not a good thing either. So it is a triple whammy as far as heart disease. And American Heart Association now realizes this, and they're recommending that Americans get no more than 5 to 7% of their daily caloric intake from sugar. However, most Americans get more than 10% of their daily caloric intake from sugar. So if 70% of Americans. So if you think you're not consuming that much sugar, you probably should think again, because you're probably getting more than you think. There are 60 different names for sugar on those ingredient labels that you buy on your food ingredient labels. So, and if anybody wants a list of those 60 names, I'd be happy to supply it. Facebook me, email me, call me. I'll send you a copy. But 60 different names. And in addition to sugar, I'm also talking about white flour, because most people don't realize that white flour, it spikes your glucose even more quickly and even higher than sugar does. And then we're also talking about artificial sweeteners too. So most people think that consuming artificial sweeteners is, not such a bad thing, and it's preferable to sugar, but quite frankly, it's not, and there are a variety of reasons why. Aspartame again, I'm not picking on aspartame, equal, NutraSweet, they're all not good for you. But aspartame in particular has been a focus of study lately, because there's a particular ingredient in it that breaks down into formaldehyde in your system, and formaldehyde is a known carcinogen. But in the whole category of artificial sweeteners, equal, Splenda, NutraSweet, the whole category seem to be neurotoxins. So they are really blamed as a root cause for headaches and migraines. They're looking at MS, and they've done some studies with people who have been diagnosed with MS, and they've taken them off all artificial sweeteners, and their symptoms decrease dramatically. I can't say that they totally go away for some people, but they do decrease dramatically in almost everyone. So there's no doubt that artificial sweeteners have their own issues and are not really to be trusted either. And the biggest cause of being overweight is sugar intake. And again, it's hiding in everything. So you may be blaming your excess weight on other things, but a lot of it could be how much sugar you're bringing in. Sugar does a couple of different things. It disrupts your endocrine function. It disrupts leptin, which is the hormone that tells you that you're full. So if you eat a lot of sugar, you potentially never get full. You're hungry an hour or 2 hours later, partly because of that blood glucose crash that we talked about, but partly because that hormone that says that you're full is disrupted, and so you're not getting that, your brain isn't getting that signal that you had enough to eat. So you could actually be overeating and still feel hungry and still feel like you want food. And sugar is addicting. We talked about the bliss point a couple of small bites ago, and the fact that our processed food is engineered so that you want more of it. But sugar in and of itself is also addicting. It goes straight to those neurotransmitters, the same neurotransmitters, serotonin and dopamine, that are affected by opiate ingestion, for example, heroin. So you get that high, you get that mild euphoria when you eat sugar, and that tends to be sort of an addicting feeling. And if you don't believe me, try to cut out sugar. And we'll talk about that more in our Small Bites for next week, because I'm going to talk to you about how to get off of sugar. But don't be surprised by the fact that if you've never tried to quit sugar before and you eat a lot of it, you're going to experience some withdrawal symptoms. And the other thing that we've known for a long time, but we don't really talk about, is the fact that that cancer cells replicate from sugar. They gobble glucose. That's the way cancer cells replicate. So we've known for a long time that cancer feeds on sugar. So if you have a history of cancer, if you have a previous diagnosis, you have a lot of cancer in your family, or you have a current diagnosis of cancer, the best thing that you can do to either prevent a recurrence, to prevent cancer if you have a family history, to prevent it altogether, or to assist your chemotherapy regimen, is to decrease your sugar intake to almost nothing. This is the best thing you can do in terms of cancer. And it's really the best thing that you can do in terms of your overall health, is to dump the sugar. So if there's one health goal that I would ask you to commit to in 2015, and it can be a process. Again, we've talked about that a lot. It is a process, but throughout the rest of 2015, if you can commit to this goal, you will do more for your overall health than almost anything else you can do. So next week, we'll talk a bit more about artificial sweeteners. We'll talk a bit more about alternate sweeteners that are actually good for you and healthy for you. We'll talk about ways to wean yourself off of the sugar. But for now, let's make this goal for 2015 to get healthy and to dump the sugar out of your diet. So, and remember the 80-20 rule. I'm not talking about never having a sweet thing again. I'm just talking about, mainly keeping sugar out of your diet 80%. So that's all for this week. Talk to you next week. Take care.